What are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about strategic planning.
Okay.
Strategic business planning specifically.
All right.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think if we asked our clients, any of them, all of them, where their company is going to be in the next 5 years, do you think they could answer you with a cohesive answer?
Most of them, no.
Right. That's kind of what I thought. So what we're going to talk about is why strategic planning is important. Mm-hmm. But I want to go at it from an angle of why is it so hard to get yourself to do it? Is the angle here. Does that make sense?
Sure. I got it.
So people avoid it. Why do you think strategic planning for your business, why do you think, what's your first off the top of your head reason why that it's just so hard? People don't want to do it.
As far as our clients?
Yeah. Well, anybody for that matter.
I mean, you're busy running the business.
Sure.
You're busy taking care of business. It's hard to pry yourself away for 2, 3, 4 days,
right?
With a team you trust and get them all pried away from everything and turn off your phones and not be interrupted and actually think about where do you want to be and how are you going to get there and actually design a feasible roadmap. I think there's a muscle that doesn't get flexed very often there. And it's also just hard to extract yourself from the day-to-day. Most companies I know that do this do some type of an off-site 3-day retreat where they confiscate your phones and they put you away where there's no television and all you do is immerse yourself in this. So and there's a leader.
So the idea is it's a time thing. You don't have the time for it.
I think there's a time as well as I said, I think there's a muscle that doesn't get used very often in that vein. Like people do immediate planning, short-term planning, but that long-term visioning.
Well, so sorry. So all right, let's play with that because I agree with you on the visioning part. I suffer from this. I am an engineering kind of a problem-solving mind. Mm-hmm. It is sometimes hard for me to think way out in the future and post a sign 5 years out. I want to like immediately start solving the problem as if I could today to know what's going to happen in 5 years. So I think you're right. I think there is a skill to that, especially in construction. We tend to be engineering type people. We're problem-solving people.
Sure.
We're also pretty used to being on the defense a fair amount, it feels like.
Well, the other thing about construction, to some extent, I'm going to throw this out there, is you don't necessarily control your own destiny 100%. Sure. You're dependent on bigger economics. You're dependent on competition, failing or succeeding, total addressable market. What's the volume of projects that's available now versus where are we going to be in 3 or 4 years or 5 years? That's hard to see.
Right, which gets back to that there's a skill set there but I need actionable stuff today.
Right.
And it kind of gets me to my next thought is the fear of being wrong as a reason maybe why you might resist wanting to do the planning because you're like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not going to be wrong, so then it's going to be bad.
Yeah, why would I waste all this time now planning for the next 5 years if I can't see past year 2?
Right.
Like, what's the point? I'm just going to have to redo this every year. Right. Let's just do a 1-year plan or a 2-year plan. Right. I can see kind of that far. I can see my backlog, my pipeline of work.
Yeah. Right, yeah. It's 2 years, 1 year you can do. 2 years is meh. After that, it gets really fuzzy and...
Right.
Like, shit, I don't know. There's going to be 2 or 3 elections between now and then. How would I know what's going to happen?
Right.
Sure. What else? Anything else that you think?
Well, as I was saying, I think that I mentioned it. I think that a lot of the companies that do this successfully bring in an outside third party to lead those workshops because there is a framework for this. There's a couple of frameworks. You can go download them off the internet, but having somebody who actually facilitates this and does this kind of for a living can really pay off. Like you get a lot more out of it when you have somebody who's experienced who can kind of push people along
out of their comfort zone
comfort zone, extract out of people, hey, no, remember that we said there's no bad ideas, put it up on the wall, like really get people out of their comfort zones and out of their seats and facilitate that. That's where I've seen these really pay off.
Right. Yeah. Because they most construction leaders were brought up through operations, not. You get to really big companies, maybe you brought in a CEO that's run other businesses and that's what he does. But most were project managers, and then they were senior PMs, and then one day they were president of the company, or maybe they just founded the company because
I mean,
so
you have to remember
they don't have that background.
Some percentage, a third maybe, were just contractors. They were just workers. They were tradespeople who started their own company, and now they've grown their businesses. And this isn't a skill set that you even learn in school. This is extracurricular stuff.
With the clients we've worked with, that you've worked specifically with this, where do you feel like? I just lost my train of thought entirely. Like it went out the window.
Yeah. Got it.
It was completely gone. All right, so let's try that again.
All right.
So it's a difficult process. Maybe there's a skill or a muscle you haven't flexed, or maybe there's some fear around identifying things, etc. With the clients you've worked with on strategic planning, or maybe strategic planning we've done here, what would you say is the best first step to getting past that and getting into the really, getting yourself in the right headset?
So I've got the answer I want to say, which is you got to get everybody prepped. You got to get them thinking about this before they walk into the room for the first session, which means giving them homework. And that doesn't usually go well. That's the problem. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, I assigned book reports to everybody.
I do remember
everybody read a book.
Yeah.
We actually paired people up.
Yep.
They both read the book, and then they had to present to the bigger group about their book. And we had like 4 book presentations.
I think it was 3 or 4, yeah.
And that kind of got the energy in the room to where we wanted it. Like everybody got to own something. They got to present however they wanted to about the book that they had read. They had to work with somebody else to do that presentation. Yep. And it got the juices flowing. It got the mindset started. So you sat there in the morning and you heard 4 book reports over the course of, it was probably 20 minutes apiece with a little bit of a break in Q&A in between. So maybe 2 hours. So the first couple of hours. And then we got started talking about, where is the business at today and what do we think the vision is for it? And that took us to lunch.
Yeah.
And that was just a great way to kind of get the energy in the room, get everybody's head kind of facing in the right direction or the same direction, and get the conversation started.
So I think you hit on something really important there. So in that case, you assigned the books. So you actually had at least an idea of the direction or the vision that you wanted ahead. You needed to get, you were willing to listen and hear and some other things, but you had kind of an idea. So that was in this case, that was bringing everybody along. I'm wondering about a business leader that doesn't have that. Like, I don't even know where to start. I couldn't pick 2 books, 1 book for that matter, to get my people thinking in the direction that I want them to think.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where I would be thinking about hiring a facilitator, somebody who's a professional at leading these types of workshops, or somebody with a lot of experience like us in leading these for groups and companies in construction. But if you're just a general business person, you need to go find a facilitator.
Sure.
It's not something you're expected to know how to do, right? Like I want people to realize as a business leader, thinking strategically and being able to run a strategic business planning workshop over a day or a couple of days is not a skill set you need to be a successful business person. And even the big, corporate companies bring in third parties. They bring in consultants to run these things. They bring in facilitators. Yeah. It's just because if all the thinking about the business comes from the people in the business, there's no outside perspective.
Right.
There's no unbiased perspective.
There's nobody challenging your thought.
Right. And there's no external ideas coming in.
What do they call that? An echo chamber?
Yes. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of value in bringing in outsiders to facilitate, offer advice, insight, push the team, inspire conversations, spark ideas, and let the team kind of run that all to ground. I mean, you've done a few of these. What have been your experiences?
The ones I've done, I'm thinking of one in particular. They actually specifically asked for a different perspective. They had been working with another known brand in the consulting world, and they felt like that there wasn't a match. They were looking for a different voice, a different perspective entirely. So they ended up working with us, with me, and that's exactly how it went. Was they had been sitting around talking to each other, and they had a business leader that had just exited the business. So it was not a new group of people. They'd already been there, but they weren't making the decisions per se. There was still someone, a majority shareholder that had been to that point. So there was, it was a little bit of the succession planning technically had happened, but the thought process about how do we make decisions together hadn't really happened. So it was a unique experience where it wasn't just strategic planning. We ended up really getting into how do the lines of communication work here, and how do we work together as a team? They understood the voting structure, they understood all the legal side of it. Sure, but there was still but we're
personalities.
Well, and they understood that as well. But it was in the room, we all say, there's no rank in this room. We can talk about this. And they hadn't figured that out entirely because they were pretty used to just plugging along. They'd been a part of strategic planning, but they never got a say in it. So it's back to that, didn't have the muscle memory or didn't have the skill set.
Right. Well, we're getting ready to do strategic planning here in a few months.
Yep.
What do you think we ought to do this time to tee it up for success?
I was thinking about that a little bit preparing for this. An offsite thing did actually occur to me. I know we've blocked it on the calendar so far. There hasn't been any, I don't think you've thought about it any beyond that. But an offsite did occur to me. And we've got some new faces around here as well that we didn't have the last time we were here or the last time we did our strategic planning. So I think there's some planning that you and I need to do, and Greg as well, to plan for that and decide let's put an agenda together. Let's talk about if we're going to do it in-house, like literally in the office, or if maybe we're going to get away, if that's possible.
Are we going to do book reports again, or do you want to do movie reviews?
Oh, that's a good one.
Something creative like that.
I like the book report idea. Maybe it's not book report, but it's just like come in prepared to present something that's interesting to you. Business related, of course. You don't want to hear about, me fixing a bicycle or something like that, but something that's business related that is interesting to you. That's something you read on. I know you read a lot. I know I read a ton. Greg reads a lot of periodicals and articles and stuff like that about business. So maybe in lieu of us forwarding those around via text strings and never reading them, maybe we do something like that.
I read almost everything you send. It might take me a week or two.
Yeah.
But all right. So construction company owners, right? Now, what are some of the limitations you have when you're doing strategic planning? I think I already said, and we agreed on, it's hard to see multiple years into the future macroeconomic wise. You don't know where the market's going to be. You have a sense of where things are heading. You can see what's on the books, but one change in the federal administration can upset things for months or even years. And the market, God forbid, another pandemic changes the whole economy for a couple of years to get things back on track.
Well, it's interesting. To a certain degree, there's people out there that are they're serial entrepreneurs. They just don't think like that. They're more adaptable, let's say. I'd done strategic planning prior to the pandemic, and all of a sudden that got on everybody's bingo card. Like, oh, we have to talk about that now when we do SWOT analysis.
Right.
Global pandemic is a possible threat. Are you kidding me? Like, that's what we have to talk about. But the reality is there's always been supply chain problems. The drywall plant shuts down for the summer, every summer. Or steel prices are ridiculous, or copper prices are ridiculous, or there's some other supply chain problems. So those things happen anyway. I think I keep going back to, I really think it's a, people have a difficult time thinking about something outside of how they've done things in the past. Mm-hmm. It's breaking the cycle of, well, this is how we've always done it. So we do hard bid, or we always chase hospitals, or we always whatever. And then when you start looking at what it's going to take to go, well, we're going to really thinking through how can we leverage what we have today and pivot it to a different market sector. Let's say we did a lot of multifamily garden style apartments. Well, that's multi-key. That could be a hotel. That mm-hmm. could be hospitality. It could be medical, perhaps. Those are unique, and you've got to go chop wood, and you've got to, I think it's the prospect of, we got to go like beat our head against the wall for a year to try to meet people in a new market sectors that stops people, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, well, we'll just keep on hammering the way we're hammering and it'll come back. It'll be fine. I think. Like most people's businesses are much more reactive. And then all of a sudden they look backwards and they go, how did I get here? It's a collection of a bunch of decisions or reactions as opposed to a decision about where I want to be or where we want to take things.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I'm thinking about like a driving analogy or a road trip, right? If you didn't map it out to get to your destination, a specific route, you can just start heading in that direction and just keep taking roads. You might make some wrong turns and have to turn around and back up and get back out to the highway.
Get completely lost.
But as long as you keep heading in that direction, eventually you'll get there. Yeah. Hopefully, if the car doesn't break down ahead of time, on the way. So, and I think it's also important to say that there's different levels of strategic planning. There is highly detailed, very well thought out, initiatives, milestones, like a whole roadmap that you can run in strategic planning. Yeah. But there's also kind of a intermediate level where it's broad strokes. All right, we know we want to get into healthcare. Let's start going to some healthcare conferences. Let's start putting some healthcare language up on our website. Let's go talk to some developers who are doing healthcare, go talk to some healthcare institutions and go see about getting on their bid list, and let's start getting pre-qualified. That's still strategic planning. It's just not at the granular, detailed, milestones. We have to hit these different KPIs or different goals by certain specific times. So I think there's gradient levels of strategic planning, and it doesn't have to be super in-depth the first time you do it, but putting together some idea of goals that you have for the business, for the team, maybe there's personal goals in there.
Sure.
Staff augmentation, wherever that might be, and starting to put some thought into, well, how are we actually going to accomplish that? What are some beginning steps? What are some mid steps? What does it look like? How do we know we actually got there? What does success look like?
Right. So, all right. So with that in mind, what do you think, what's like maybe 2 or 3 things that separate, whether it's that super detailed or it's maybe a little less, what's 1 or 2 things that absolutely separate either of those plans from actually being something you use versus it just gathers dust?
I think you'd have to assign somebody to be responsible, and you'd have to put some type of a timeline to it. Mm-hmm. If you don't make anybody responsible and you don't put any dates on it, it's just words on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard. Mm-hmm. It has to be something also that you talk about regularly. So if you have a monthly leadership meeting or a quarterly meeting, this needs to be on the agenda, and that person who's responsible has to report progress. What have you done about that?
Right.
And then they should be able to enlist resources to help them if they need it. So giving them some level of support, some autonomy, to go along with that responsibility. Hey, we want to start getting into healthcare. Jeff, you're in charge of getting us into healthcare.
Right.
We'd like to have our first healthcare project in a year. So what are some things we need to do in the first quarter to start setting that up? And you're like, I got to get some stuff on the website. I need some marketing assets. I need some sales language around that. And I've got to go put together a list of clients that we have that do healthcare that we've done other stuff for, but
we can go talk to.
We can go talk to them about doing healthcare. Right. I think second quarter is let's get pre-qualified with some of these developers or entities to go bid on some of that work. And then let's get 1 or 2 estimators trained on how to estimate stuff in healthcare that they've never estimated before.
Maybe there's a strategic hire in there. We need
Right.
a PM with healthcare resume
Right.
because he's done Humana work forever, and we want
Right.
to go win Humana
So
work.
Jeff, in Q2, you're authorized to go recruit and hire a project manager with healthcare experience. And we should also have multifamily, so if we don't win any, he's got something to do.
Right.
But we need somebody with healthcare experience that we can use their resume to help us win the work. So that's like giving you some responsibility, giving you some authority, giving you some resources, some funding, and then holding you responsible and accountable to report back at the quarterly meetings on what progress you've made. I think that's the difference between, that's like an actionable plan, a level of strategic planning that doesn't just sit on a shelf, but isn't granular and tied to like micro accomplishments, maybe.
Right.
So something in that range is probably more than your competition's doing.
That's been my experience. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of benefit right there, just with a mild amount of planning.
Yeah, I think just to speak to the kind of that mid-sized contractor that founder, president, CEO feels like they have to do it all. I'd like to add, look around at some of your younger staff members, high potential employees, people that you'd like to promote. Not to bring succession planning in this necessarily, but you might want to think about that as part of strategic business planning. How long are you in the business and how are you going to exit the business is a conversation you should be thinking about. I mean, it may be 25 years away, but it's never too early to be thinking about that a little bit. But look for opportunities to bring people in is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to do this on your own.
I think it's also
Involve people in the business.
It's a good retention strategy as well. Like the more people feel like they have a voice at the company, the more likely they are to stay and be invested in the success of the company.
Right. So I thought of this. I want to do this topic today because it's the end of Q1. Most people are doing strategic planning in Q3, Q4. But I thought maybe we could talk about it now in anticipation of if you weren't thinking about doing any kind of strategic planning formally this year, as you get through the summer, you should definitely be thinking about doing something this year in the third quarter, fourth quarter, get ready for next year.
Yeah, we usually do ours in Q1 or Q2.
Yeah, we like to do ours a little earlier, but yeah. Quite traditionally, the corporate people tend to do it at the end of the year, but there's no...
But then they run out of time.
There's no wrong time, I guess, is here. The point I'm making here is there's no wrong time. You can start now. You don't have to wait. There's not a magical rainbow that opens up when you pick the right day of the year. It's just start now. But putting a timeline to it is, I think, the most important thing.
Agreed.
All right. Well, this is good. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a fun topic to talk about. Now you got me thinking about our strategic planning workshops that are coming up.
Yeah. So, I guess just to close, most of our clients that we've worked with that we didn't do a strategic plan with probably don't have a strategic plan, or they have something that they've maybe kind of done and they haven't revisited it.
I wouldn't say just our clients. I would say in construction, my experience has just been broadly that strategic planning is something that the large corporations engage in regularly and the small companies don't have time for or don't make time for.
Right. So you may not like where you end up if you don't.
Hopefully not.
Right.
But yeah, that does tend to, what's that saying Greg has? When the water goes down, all the dead bodies float to the surface.
Well, they get exposed.
When times are going well, you don't need strategic planning. You just keep riding the tailwinds.
Yeah.
It's when things slow down that the strategic planning really is that's when that really pays off.
Right. Great. All right. Good discussion. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Construction Hot Takes Podcast.